Stigma and crime. Freak, strange, weird. These words are all markers of stigma. They are used to create distance between groups of people, to create the other, an outsider in society. Broadly defined, stigma is a negative mark of disapproval, label, shame, or discredit attached to a person, group, or characteristic. Stigma is used to justify the exclusion of an individual from normal societal interaction. Goffman has majorly influenced the concept and understanding of stigma. He presents the idea that stigma is an attribute that is deeply discrediting within a particular interaction. Thus, it is something undesirable within a particular context. No act is inherently stigmatized, it is the negative attachments we give to the act which make it such. Goffman offers the idea that stigma is the situation of an individual who is disqualified from full social acceptance. He identifies 3 distinct types of stigma. Number 1, abominations of the body, such as scars or deformities. Number 2, blemishes of individual character, such as weak will or unnatural passions. And thirdly, tribal, such as group affiliation like religion. These categories are not exclusive and often overlap, as can be seen with the example of HIV and AIDS sufferers. They are stigmatized by having an illness, being homosexual, and their choice to engage in dangerous sexual acts. So how does this relate to crime?
We just got a bit drunk and decided to do our thing, innit? Ran up in a shop with a knife. That was just a mad drunken fucking money thing, what I needed. He was like, give us the money. And he was just like, how much? And we was like, all of it, you fucking donut. I thought I was gonna get at least £600, but didn't get fuck all. Bottle of soda, what got dropped at the door.
Stigmatisations often have ties to labels of deviance and crime because of fear, lack of information, and stereotyping. The level of deviance attributed to a specific act can frequently be associated with a stigma held against such behaviours in that context, resulting in a cycle of shunning and evaluation against those in which society deems undeserving or unwanted. Jones identifies stigmatisations of the working class through the label of the chav and suggests that this leads to growing social inequalities. When large groups of people are excluded from mainstream society, such as chavs, they form their own subcultures in which they produce their own attitudes, values, and beliefs. Previously, during the video, we saw some of the stigmatisation surrounding the hoodie. Media played a large role in defining the hoodie to be deviant. Moral entrepreneurs who disapprove of a particular thing or act use the media to put pressure on local authorities to fix the alleged problem. This has been successful in Bluewater Retail Centre in Kent, in which hooded tops, swearing and baseball caps have been outlawed. These acts and items of clothing have been labelled intimidating and the group of people that wear them stigmatised as criminal. They are seen abject from mainstream society because of negative connotations associated with them. They make the people of Bluewater feel uncomfortable. An important part of this process is the creation of a moral panic. A moral panic is an exaggerated overreaction by society to a perceived problem, usually driven or inspired by the media, where the reaction enlarges the problem out of all proportion to the real seriousness. In a moral panic, this usually leads to calls for a crackdown on the group in question. However, this may create a self-fulfilling prophecy that amplifies the very problem that caused the panic in the first place. For example, in the case of drugs, setting up a special drug squad led to police to discover more drug taking as the crackdown identifies more deviants. This calls for tougher action, creating a deviancy amplification spiral and further embedding stigmatisation into our culture. The most influential study of moral panics and the role of the media is Stanley Cohen's book Folk Devils and Moral Panics. Cohen examines the media's response to disturbances between two largely working class groups of teenagers, the mods and the rockers. Mods dressed smartly and rode scooters, rockers wore leather jackets and rode motorbikes. In the early stages, these distinctions were not so clear-cut. It wasn't until these attributes became stigmatised by the media that a moral panic started. The disturbances were relatively minor compared to the media's portrayal. Throughout this video, we have mainly concentrated on deviance and low-level crime. But how does stigma affect convicted criminals? Deva Paga provides an interesting experimental study looking at the mark of a criminal record in the USA in regards to employment. The aim of her experiment was to see how race and the interaction between race and a criminal background affects hiring experiences. For this experiment, she created 4 CVs, all identical, and then she used 2 identical-looking black males and 2 identical-looking white males to go out and apply for jobs. The only difference being that 1 black male and 1 white male stated on their CV that they had a criminal record. It appeared that employers were influenced by persuasive and largely unconscious stigmas. She found that a criminal record reduced the employment for a white male by 50%, and she found that less than 1/3 of black men with a criminal record got a callback. But when we compare race, a white man with a criminal record is more likely to get hired than a black man without one. Thus, we see that stigma is composed of many different prejudices, and the criminal justice system has not affected all groups equally. There are large racial disparities that we need to begin to change by stopping stigma. Feeling inspired by Deva's work, I decided to conduct my own mini-experiment in relation to the stigma of a convicted criminal. To conduct this experiment, I created 2 Facebook profiles. I attempted to make similar profiles and make their profile pictures similar. They're both 2 white youths with their hoods up, playing on the stigma associated with hoodies as we've seen previously in this video. However, on the profile of Dave Smith, I made it clear that he had served time in prison through a status and the biography option on the Facebook profile. I then asked 10 girls aged 20 to determine which boy they would most likely add on Facebook. The majority response was that they would add neither profile on Facebook. When asked why, the girls explained that the hoods up made them feel uncomfortable and had stereotypes of being chavvy. However, 7 out of the 10 girls said they would add Danny on Facebook because Dave is a criminal and they wouldn't want to be associated with that kind of behaviour. Having said this, 3 out of 10 participants said that they would add Dave on Facebook because when looking at the profile they concentrated on the picture and thought Dave to be better looking. Both profiles, however, were stigmatised by the participants as being screwers, scrotes, johnheads, etc. These are all derogatory terms applied to inner city, low income youths. From this, we can see that crime can become a master status for people like Dave, and this becomes their whole identity. Criminals have stigma forced upon them by society, and they have little power to negotiate their position. Thanks for watching.